Hello and welcome to Group Coaching Session 9. This is a re-recording of the session from Thursday, August 13th, and we appreciate you taking the time to engage with the recording. Now let's go ahead and play our disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education Contract Number ED-ESE 15A 0015/0006 with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right. Now that you're disclaimed, we can jump right in. We're going to be talking about some tips and tools for starting your year virtually, since all of the NAL-ED grantees are starting the year virtually this year. We thought it'd be good to provide some various tips and tools that might be helpful for this time of year. So as we move throughout today, we're going to kind of focus on a couple of categories. We're going to talk about how to provide that structure and consistency, particularly in a virtual learning environment. Some things called soft starts and how to get feedback from your students, how to build rapport in this virtual learning environment, and how to battle that burnout, both for you and for your students as you're spending a lot more time online. And then we'll have some time at the end for final questions. So as we begin thinking about structure and consistency, what we know about students in general is that they do thrive when they have that structure and consistency. And so we want to be able to provide that as much as possible for them also in this virtual learning environment. So one neat idea that many folks are trying is something called a back to school invitation. So instead of just a standard email saying, here's your login for whatever platform we're using and school starts, at 8 a.m. on Monday, they're just making it a little warmer, a little more unique, and creating more of an online invite like you might do for an event or something more festive. They're making that first day of school, that first week of school, more festive too. So there's an example here that you can see from Christine Nanini, and she just made this little template where she could then change it up for each of her classes and then plug in, what time they have to be online and the link for where they had to be. So for her, she's using Zoom. If you're using, Google Meet or Schoology, whatever you're using, you could paste in that link there and just give it a more exciting start. So just an idea there. There are lots of great templates online that you could try out for something like that. The other is to post your schedule. So whatever platform you're using, to post your schedule. So much like you all do in your classrooms that I've seen when I come and do those classroom walkthroughs, you all have your schedule up. Find a way to do that online so that it's really clear for students and their families what the layout of the day is and what the layout of the week is, so that they can just have that kind of comfort of a schedule. And then as students join your virtual classroom, try to greet them by name. You may notice when you come on to our group coaching sessions or our webinars, a lot of times as you enter the Zoom room, I try to greet you by name. And it's that same idea that, you see them, they've entered that classroom, again, much the same as a physical classroom, and you're happy to see them. You're welcoming them personally into that virtual learning environment. Next, let's talk about classroom rituals. So think about those things that you do in your classroom typically to start the day or to start the class. So for our younger learners, maybe you do the calendar and maybe you talk about the weather. How can you still do that in your virtual learning environment? So they're keeping those things that feel familiar and that kind of set the stage for the day. Maybe it's a certain way that you close the learning time and you want to keep that. For your older students, it might just be the layout of the class and kind of some of the types of activities that you offer. But think about those and what are some ways that you can keep those in your virtual learning environment so that it feels familiar for those who were with you physically last year, and that then when they return to your physical classroom, it's kind of a seamless transition. Those things feel familiar in that environment too. Another idea is to offer remote office hours. So this would be a time when you would just let students know that you would be available to be online. And you could either just go ahead and open up a room on whatever online learning platform you're using and hang out there for a half hour, an hour. And if a student or a family had a question or needed help with something, they could pop in. Or it could be that you post those hours and then families can reach out via email if they'd like to meet or if they have a question. And they either know that during that time you're going to be at your computer and therefore your email responses are going to be immediate, or that they could also set up an actual online face-to-face meeting during that time. And it just gives them that opportunity to kind of reach out for support in this new type of learning. Also, really think about that positive feedback that you're providing. It can be kind of an adjustment to do that in that virtual learning environment. So think about how you can do that and provide students with that encouragement that what they're doing is really going well. Make sure that you're doing that maybe both in a written feedback format as well as live, as you're meeting live online. And then the final thing here is our 2x10 theory. So as we think about this 2x10 theory, the idea of that is that for those students who aren't as engaged, and this is whether it be virtually or in person, that if we were to really focus on those students for 2 minutes a day for 10 days, that it can make a huge impact in their engagement in their learning. And so, as you have those students who maybe are not joining on to their online learning with the frequency which they need to, or maybe they are joining, but they're not really participating. You can tell maybe they're not really paying attention. Think about kind of picking out maybe a couple of those students at a time, or if there's just a few in general, and applying this 2x10 theory. And that means that you're going to intentionally engage with them for 2 minutes a day for 10 days. Now, be cognizant of the fact that with the virtual learning, if you're going to be meeting with them personally, that you'll want to either have someone else in that virtual learning environment or record it, whatever's kind of in line with your organization's policy for working with students one-on-one online. But really think about being able to set aside 2 minutes a day for that particular student that's just about them. And it might even be, during breakout room time in one of your activities, but to really ask, how are things going? What's going on with you? And really touch base with them again for 10 school days. So then at the end of that, kind of check back and see, has this worked? And not that you would stop engaging with them after that, but you wouldn't be doing it on quite such a regular and consistent basis then. Now let's go look at some digital name tints. So I think this could be a fun way to start off your year. You may have students who have not been in your classroom before. You may have students who have not been in a classroom together before. And this just gives them a way to kind of introduce themselves and for you to introduce yourself. So you could give them a template like this, and then they could do this on, a PowerPoint or a Google slide. They could do this on any of the platforms, like if you're using, I know some of you are using Seesaw, they could use something like that. They could do this in a number of different things, the Flipgrid, lots of the different tools that we've used. They could even do this on paper and then just take a picture. So whatever is going to work with your students' tech levels, you can make this work. But you can see here in the template, they can put in a picture of themselves. They can put in an emoji maybe that shows how they're feeling. So again, making this fun. Give 3 facts about themselves. It suggests, make the background of this your favorite color. They put their name in the middle. And then down at the bottom, you can see, what's their favorite book. And if you have maybe older students who are reticent to pick out a favorite book currently. What was a favorite book when you were younger? And this could also be something specifically tied to your content. So if you teach a particular content, you could connect it there. You could make this something tied to culture. So maybe their favorite cultural activity or tradition, maybe something specifically that they engaged with over the summer, and then a quote that's meaningful to them. So, this is probably something that you would use with more junior high and up, or even upper elementary. For your youngers, they could pick out their favorite animal, all kinds of things like that they could pop in there. So let me show you what that would look like. So this is one that this Miss Darby did. You can see she had her picture, her emoji, because she is super excited about the new year. She's got her facts there, including that she's an identical twin. So she popped in a cute photo, her favorite quote, and her favorite books. So it just gives you an idea of what that would look like. Then in class, again, on whatever online learning platform you're using, you could share each of these up on the screen and the students could present them. You could even cover up the name and have the students kind of guess which student each name tent was about. And it's just a really nice, fun way to begin getting to know your students, them getting to know you, getting to know each other, and building that classroom rapport. So just a fun activity. Now, next I want to talk about soft starts and feedback. So when we think about soft starts, the idea is that when we come into the learning environment, we don't know what exactly has been going on right immediately before the student logs in. They might have been coming from another class. They might have been engaged with something at home, whether positive or negative. And so we want to ease them into that learning environment. Some of the discussion that's been going on around the virtual learning environment is that, students are sometimes coming into it and it's feeling abrupt and it's feeling jolting, and they're having trouble adjusting to being in learning mode. And so these soft starts are meant to kind of ease them into that learning mode. So that might be that you start each of your class sessions with a discussion. And so maybe you put up a discussion question and you have a classroom discussion around that. Maybe you play a little game using some of those game options that we talked about in the previous session, such as Kahoot or Doozy. And maybe it's more of a challenge problem. So particularly, with some of the various contents, they lend themselves to putting up a challenge problem. And we can all work individually and then talk through it together, kind of in a bell ringer style. Maybe it's a little bit of reading. Maybe you provide them with an article that they're going to open up and read, or a reading passage, and just kind of ease in that with a little reading time. It can also be a fun time to do like a puzzle, even if it's just something to kind of turn their brains on and it's not necessarily super related to your content, but if it's short, then it's really not taking away and it's kind of jolting their brain back into learning action. And then also think about maybe a mindfulness moment, just to let them put away whatever was going on before, whatever might be on their mind, so that then they can dedicate themselves to the classroom. I'm going to give you a resource for that as well. And then some other things to think about are how to really keep getting feedback from your students. So once you've gotten them into that learning mode, how can you continue to gather feedback? So you, of course, can use polls. If you're using Zoom, we went over previously in session 1 how to use polls and how you can actually use those to get all kinds of feedback. You can also use those external polling options, things like Poll Everywhere. Remember that Google Classroom is going to be getting polls in just a couple of weeks, so that will soon be an option as well within the actual platform. You can also do surveys. So I'll show you some options today to be able to do some free surveying, and you can check those out to be able to do, just some longer feedback, some different question type options. You could also do a Flipgrid reflection. So we talked about Flipgrid before. You could just have students record a quick Flipgrid as part of their reflection, or do what's called exit tickets, where students might answer a couple of questions or provide some sort of answer to something, and that's their exit ticket to leave the class that day. And they could submit that in the chat box. They could submit a picture of that, whatever works for your content. Another nice one is a focus group. This is something, of course, that you probably wouldn't do as frequently, but get together a group of students and just spend some time online talking. How is this working for you? And in particular, this can be really good when talking about how the layout of virtual learning is working. How is the platform working for you? How's it working for your friends? What are you hearing? Are there more supports that you need? What's going on? And then another thing that some folks have been trying is like Feedback Friday, where they just ask 1 or 2 questions every Friday to get some kind of consistent feedback as they go throughout this time. And these are even things, again, all of these things that you can implement once you're back in your physical classroom. So I want to share a mindfulness resource here with you. And you can see here, it's a resource called Headspace. So with Headspace, it's a free resource if you're a teacher. Now, for other folks, they do offer a variety of paid memberships. But if you go to headspace.com/educators, or just go to their webpage and go under educators, you'll see that they do have a free account for educators. And under that, not only do you get access to things that you can use yourself, because we all know this is a stressful time to be teaching and you have a lot going on, so it can be helpful for you also to have those resources for mindfulness and meditation, for relaxation. They have great things for sleep, but they also have some that are specifically designed for use with students. And so you could use these, again, to kind of start class time, to again reset the mind and get ready for that learning time. Or even if it's mid-class and you just notice the kids are off, they don't seem to be on task, and maybe you feel like they need a reset, you can play one of these short things. So I want to show you an example now of just a short mindfulness meditation that might be good to start a class day.
Hi, and welcome to Headspace. So no matter what's going on in your life right now, no matter how many thoughts are racing around your mind, no matter how the body's feeling, just take a moment to sit down and take a big, deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, a sense of taking in fresh air, the lungs expanding. As you breathe out, a sense of letting go of any stress in the body, in the mind, just feeling the muscles soften and relax. And close your eyes if you'd like to, one more, breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just take a moment to pause, allow the thoughts to come and go, and then just gently opening the eyes again.
So you see, it's not taking a lot of time out of your class, but just providing a little time to recenter and hopefully get our minds ready for new learning that day. So they have lots of different ones. You can go and check those out. Again, it's a totally free account for teachers. The other thing that I want to show you was a resource for surveying your students. You could also use this to survey families. And I'm going to show you Google Forms. Now, SurveyMonkey also has a free account. I'm going to show you Google Forms because I think it gives you just a few more options within the free account. So things like being able to get your responses in a spreadsheet, which if you're going to be using this for anything graded and you want to analyze the data, that's a lot easier. Where on SurveyMonkey on the free account, you can't export that in that format. You're going to get it more response by response, but that is definitely another great option. So let's go live now and I'll show you on Google Forms. All right. So it opens up here to Headspace. This is what that would look like if you were going to check that out, but we're going to head to Google Forms. So when you first go to Google Forms, you'll notice you can start a new form. You can use some pre-existing templates and take one of those and then customize it. But we're actually going to just start a brand new one. And you'll see when you open it up, it asks for a title. So sample survey, you can give it any kind of description here. And then you can go ahead and start adding questions. So you'll see you put in your question or your prompt, and then you can even add an image if you wanted to do that. And you can choose what kind of question you want. So it defaulted to multiple choice. We could also do checkboxes. We could do a drop-down menu. We could ask them to upload a file. So if you'd ask them to complete something, you could have them upload it there. We can do a linear scale where they're rating, or one of those multiple choice grids or checkbox grids where you have things along both axes and they're selecting. You can use it to input the date and time, maybe that they're completing this. And then up here, you also have your longer answers. So things like your short answer questions, and if you wanted them to answer in longer paragraphs. So we'll start out with this multiple choice question. You'll see you can put in your options. These can also be images. So we can add another option, maybe an image. You can also use this even for assessment, because you can see there's lots of different things you could use here for that. Once we have it how we like it, then we can duplicate, where we would just be making another question that looks exactly like that. We can get rid of it. We can also make it required. So particularly if you were going to be doing this as an assessment, you may want to require that the students answer all the questions. So you can toggle that on, and a student is going to have to pick something in order to keep going. You've also got these three little dots. That's where you can add in a description. You can shuffle. So if you want this to go in random order, things like that. Now, if I don't want to duplicate, because I know I want my next one to be totally different, I can just come over here and add a question with this plus sign. You'll notice there's also importing questions. So if you already had your questions maybe in another document, you could import those. I can add a title and description to this question if I wanted. So maybe you want to start a new section. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want that. I can add another image in there. I could add a video, so I could have them watch some sort of video and then have questions after it. And then I can add a whole new section if I want to section those out that way. But I'm going to add another question so you can see what some of these others look like. So like if I'm going to do a paragraph answer, put in whatever prompt. Again, you can also add a picture, and then they're going to be able to type in their long answer there. Doing things like, the checkbox grid. You're going to be labeling the rows and columns. Lovely. Let's see. You can also try out what it would look like with like a file upload. And this is going to put this in your Google Drive. Okay, so upload the document I asked for. Your directions would of course be better. We can only allow specific file types if we want. If we toggle this, I can pick, I only want videos or PDFs. So if there's a specific type of document they were supposed to be doing, you can do that there. You can also change the number of files. So right now they can only upload one, but maybe, you want however many. And then how big it can be. So the form can accept up to 1 gig of files. So think about that when you're thinking about your students and how big these will be. And again, making that required or not. So then once you have that all together, you'll see you can also change some settings up here. So you can customize that theme, things like putting a header image, changing the colors. If we decided we wanted this to be more of a green survey, you can pick all those things, all the fonts and all that. We can preview it. I think that's always really handy to be able to see, okay, what does that look like now that I've got it set up? You can see your multiple choice, your long answer, your matrix here, the upload, and then they'd be able to submit. So you can see if that looks how you want, and then close out of that. You can go to your settings. You can select that you want email addresses. So if you haven't made one of your questions your student's name, then you might want to collect those email addresses. You can require them to sign in and limit them to just one response to the survey. You can also allow them to edit it after they submit. So if you wanted them to be able to submit and then within whatever window they might be able to come back and make changes, you can do that. See summary charts and text responses. Know that if you click that, when a student completes the survey or a family completes a survey, they'll be able to see a summary of all the other responses that have been submitted. And then changing the maximum size of files uploaded. Now, things like you can show a progress bar, shuffle the question order, things like that. You can give a confirmation once they're done, which can also be good for telling them what to do next. And if this is a quiz, you can make it a quiz. So if this is an assessment that you've made, you can release their grade immediately after submission or later after manual review. And you can tell them, which ones they missed, which ones were right, and their point values. So that's always an option too, okay? Now you'll notice, now that I'm here, see this answer key? And I would need to add answer feedback and assign points for upload the document I asked for. Now there's an answer key, and it's because I've marked it as a quiz. So once you've marked it as a quiz, then you can make it self-grading so that, if it's things like multiple choice, you can give them points for different things. So like if they pick this, this, and this, they get a point for each. And that's all set up. And that question overall is worth 3 points. So that's something you can do if you're going to use this as an assessment. So kind of a neat option as well. And then you can send it out. And when you send it out, you can send it via email, you can get a link, or you can embed it. Now, you can see this one can't be embedded because I did file upload. But if I took that file upload off, I'd be able to get an embed link there. Often you'll be using just, sending out a link, and you can even shorten it. Now I want to show you, this is a survey that someone else was using for their summer program. So they had all kinds of questions that students would fill out. Once you start getting responses, you'll have this responses area. And this says 0 responses because the survey's been reset. But I happen to know that they have old responses in there. And so when you click view responses and sheets, it'll open up a spreadsheet. And they've set it up with some various charts and things here. But you'll get individual responses in a spreadsheet that you can set up into some graphics like that, or just go through and be able to read their responses or grade it, whatever you're using that survey for. And it just puts it all in a little spreadsheet for you. And as each new person completes it, it will just add their response down here to the bottom, one by one by one. Okay. So super easy to use, completely free, and definitely a great option if you want to do some surveys with your students. So let's go back. All right, we're going to move on and talk about building rapport with your students. So we all know how important it is to build rapport with our students, but a lot of teachers find it a little more awkward, as do students, in a virtual learning environment. So we want to talk about some ways that we can go about making sure that we do build rapport, even in our virtual classroom. So look for opportunities to share and let students share. So that means not just content, but also those little bits of yourself. Again, appropriate levels of sharing for both you and students, but things like, the digital name tints or making meet and greet videos, doing some team building exercises. Like if you've ever done the raise your hand if. So, raise your hand if you have a dog. Raise your hand if you have more than one sibling. Raise your hand if, and the students can come up with those too. And it just starts building those connections that, oh, look how many people also have a dog. Look how many people also have a big family or a small family. There's also finish my sentence, where you could put like a sentence starter up and then the students can finish those. That can be a fun kind of team builder. You could do a selfie Kahoot. So this would be where students, either individually or in small groups, could create Kahoots about themselves. So those little quizzes, and then maybe you do one a day or one a week, keeping them short, but just so that everybody can start getting to know each other and feeling like a class. You can also think about ways to do small group work. I know lots of you do group work during the school year, and that can seem a bit more challenging virtually. Breakout rooms are a great way to be able to accomplish this. Zoom currently has those breakout rooms, and Google will have those, the Google Meet, within a couple of weeks, to where you can do those breakout rooms with students. So those can be great ways to let students work in those small groups, and then you can bounce from room to room, checking in on them and facilitating. Also, using your chat box, using discussion threads, so that, those students who maybe don't feel as comfortable unmuting and talking will have another avenue to be able to engage in class activities and class discussions. So making sure everybody knows how to use that, and giving them lots of opportunities to do so. And then also, kind of like we talked about before with some of the feedback things, really looking for ways to be interactive. And we had a great session on that about 2 sessions ago, on some ways to really build engagement into your virtual classroom through things like polls and other types of activities. You could even do things like high-low, hype-gripe. Kind of a tweak on an old one of rose thorn is this new rose thorn bud. So the bud, instead of just being what was, something that you liked and didn't like this week, but the bud is, what are you excited about for next week, or excited about this school year, which can be a nice way to kind of build in that anticipation. Think about doing a scavenger hunt. This is a re-recording, and in a future session, session 12, we talk about scavenger hunts. So check that out if that's something you might be interested in. You can set those up very low tech or very high tech, but having students just do a scavenger hunt even within their home or within the immediate outside area around their home. Think about taking virtual field trips. That's another thing that we delve into in a future session, are a lot of great options about virtual field trips in session 12. Maybe a virtual talent show. I've seen lots of you do fun family nights and big events, and think about ways that you might be able to transfer that into something really fun online. I've also seen some folks doing gratitude bombs. So in particular, using Flipgrid Mixtape. So gratitude bombs, the students recorded short little thank yous to people who they felt like were really doing something awesome in the school, or really doing something awesome during this time of school closure. Whatever kind of the focus was for this particular gratitude bomb. And so they recorded all their little videos, and then Flipgrid has this new feature called mixtape, where it will take all those little videos that your students have made and make them into kind of a mixtape, a la, our youth, of creating various mixtapes and put them together into a really cool video that you could then share out with the community and with those that are being thanked in the gratitude bomb. And then finally, think about ways to share student work with the community. You don't have an option of hanging it up in a hallway or a classroom right now, but you can share those online. So you can share those maybe on social media or on your school website. Or I've seen in another session we talked about Artsonia, and that's ARTSONIA. So with that product, you're able to create free accounts, everything's free, and share out student art and student projects. And then families can see it in that nice, safe environment and like it, make comments and things like that. So lots of opportunities to be able to share student work just in a little bit different way. And it really makes students feel good when they see their work being shared. Now, another thing that I want to share with you is another tool for being able to build rapport and give an opportunity for students to really engage with one another. And that's through Padlet. If you're not familiar with Padlet, this is a resource that has a free account for teachers, really for anyone. And then you can always choose, of course, to upgrade to a paid account. But with the Padlet, you can get 3 to 4, depending upon when it is you sign up, free Padlets. And then if you invite others, so I encourage you, if you're in a learning team, invite each other, because for each person you invite, you get another free one. So if you all kind of invite each other, you automatically get another free one. So let me show you what this looks like. We'll go over to Padlet. You'll see when you log in, you have a dashboard. If you're engaging with someone else's Padlet, that doesn't count towards your Padlet limit. And if you are using a Padlet and now you're kind of done with it and you want to free up that spot, you can always click these 3 dots and archive it. It keeps it so it's saved if you want to bring it back later, but that way it frees up one of your spots to be able to make a new one. So we're going to make a Padlet. And this is really meant for students to be able to engage in discussion, brainstorming, anything where they're going to be kind of working together. So you can do things like a wall, where it's going to just kind of put everything together on the page. Canvas, there won't be as much organization. You can just kind of move everything where you want. Stream is going to look like a lot like social media. It's going to be in one row. It's going to be top to bottom, and you scroll through in that stream. Grid is a little bit different in that it's going to make it in rows. So unlike the wall where it might not kind of line up, the grid is going to be in perfect rows across. There's also a shelf. The shelf is where it's going to stack it in columns. Then you've got a back channel, which looks more like an actual conversation. So it's going to use like discussion bubbles. You can use a map and add content to points on a map. So that could be a really neat option. And a timeline, those are, kind of a neat other option. I'm going to show you one that I made as like a demo for us. So you'll see here we're in stacks because we've got these nice stacks. So I've got our discussion question. What's one distance learning thing you'd love to learn how to do? You'll see I can rename this, so I can change that question. I can also move it over if I want it in a different order, or just delete it if I no longer want it. Now, when students log in, they'll see just like this, and they'll be able to click on this plus sign and respond, and they can write a title and their answer. And you'll see they can upload a document, they can include a link, they can search on Google and include something from there. They can snap a picture. And then you can see, really, they have lots of options. They could add a location, they can draw something, they could record their screen or a little bit of audio, or take a little video aside from just the photo. So there's lots of things they can add to this discussion that are super neat ways to be able to engage in this online conversation. You can do this live where everybody is logged into your online learning platform and you're sharing your screen and they're in this in another window and engaging. You can also assign this, and then they're engaging not during your online learning time, and then maybe during your online learning time, you're reviewing the answers, you're talking about them, you're building upon them. So lots of different ways that you can do this. And you can see then, yeah, it's not going to let me because I haven't engaged here. So let me just put in some sort of response. Great. Now it should let me do my next one. And it'll just keep going in this way because I've got it in stacks. Like I said, lots of options. You can add more columns, name that. You can see here, I've already responded and I included this image about the thing that I'm excited about. I can go in and edit that because I'm the one who created it. You as the Padlet creator though, if this were something that you're like, I don't want this here, you can always delete it. That's an option too. Now you will see over here some options. Remake is if you wanted to make one similar. Maybe you're making different ones for different classes, but they're basically similar. So you can just hit remake. You can share them out. Right now I've got it secret, so the public cannot see that. Only people that I give the link to. But anybody I give the link to can write. You can change that. You can get a link, a QR code. You can email it, put it on any of your various things. You'll see it already integrates nicely with Google Classroom. You can also export it, which I really like at the end of working with it, that you can save it as an image or as a PDF, or you can export it to a spreadsheet where each comment becomes its own cell. So it makes it really easy to then be able to keep all of that information or work with it in other ways. You'll see there's also this little settings button. That's where I can change my title and description that you see at the top here. I can change that little icon. If I don't want the owl, I can change him to something else. I can get my address. You'll notice I made this unique. So as long as they have it available, you can make your address unique. Then you can change that background. You'll see they have all kinds of different options that you can pick from in there. You can even add your own, so if you want your own background. And you can pick your color scheme, what kind of font you want. I would suggest always leaving attribution on, because unless you want your students to be able to write anonymously, this way it's always going to put their name there. Lets you pick whether you want new posts to be first or last, whether viewers can comment on posts. So if you don't want students to be able to comment on each other's comments, you can turn that off, and then they can each write their own individual comment, but they can't comment on each other. See how I could add a comment onto what I've already written? So I could be here reading someone else's comment and then reply to it, which is great for discussion. But if you're just wanting them to maybe post their own answer and move on, you can turn that off. You can also give them the option to react. So I gave them the option to like each other's responses. But you'll see they can like them. They can have no reactions if you want them to just leave it alone. They can vote up or down. They can rate it 1 to 5. And they can even give a numeric score to the post. So definitely some options there. You can also require approval. So if you want to, make it to where you're going to need to require approval before any of these show up, you can turn that on. I already have filter profanity on. So if any bad words show up, it'll just show them as a little smiley face. So just kind of a little safety feature there. All right, so that's just kind of a brief look at Padlet, but lots and lots of things that you can do with this. So I encourage you to check that out. It's a neat tool to be able to try. So let's go over to look at our next thing. So the next thing that I wanted to show you as a way to kind of build rapport and excitement for the beginning of school year are Bitmoji classrooms. So I don't know if you've heard of these. It's kind of all the rage right now, and it's basically a virtual version of your physical classroom. So you can make these as basic as you want or as fancy as you want. And trust me, every level is out there. The nice thing is it's very personalized. You can customize that however you like. You can change and update them as often as you like, multiple times a day if you so choose. You can also make them interactive and clickable, which is kind of a neat feature for your students, that they can actually go into your virtual classroom and click and access various tools and resources. You can integrate cultural aspects, so you can make this kind of that classroom maybe of your dreams, because you don't have to worry about the expense of purchasing items or the confines of your normal physical environment. Now, I do suggest, if you're going to use a Bitmoji classroom, to definitely do a technology scavenger hunt. And what I mean by technology scavenger hunt is to go online and really walk them through this virtual learning environment so that they understand how to interact with it and where to find things in it, and then maybe set them loose with a short scavenger hunt within that and have them look for certain things to make sure and show you they know how to interact with this virtual classroom. Now, I'm going to show you some examples. We don't have time within our session today to go through all the nuts and bolts of creating a Bitmoji classroom, because there's so many different things you can do with it. So I'm going to link over on our resource database some resources for really great tutorials on how to do this that you can do if this is something you want to implement. But basically, you will create this Bitmoji classroom on a Google slide or a PowerPoint slide or a Keynote slide. You'll be using a resource online called Bitmoji that's completely free. And then you can then use other tools. And some of the tutorials will suggest various tools. Some that are pretty common are things like Pixton Edu, remove.bg, and unscreen, which give you some options for adding things to your classroom. But the tutorials really will walk you through all that if this is something that you want to try out. And you'll see my little virtual avatar there. You can create those of yourself in that Bitmoji. You may have already done that for some social media thing. Well, you can make your teacher version too. So let's look at some examples. So like in this room, you can see it's a kindergarten classroom. She's used tons of color and set it up very similar to how she would her normal classroom. So you'll see she's got her welcome on her smart board. She's got her calendar and days of the week and weather, the alphabet, some little posters and things. It might be, depending upon how people set this up, where you could click on the letter and hear it pronounced, or click here and hear the days of the week and the weather. You'll see she's personalized it with her dog, and clearly she likes the pink drink from Starbucks. So really putting in those personal touches. You'll notice as we go through all of these slides that if you look here, you can see who it is that has shared these. So if you want to check them out further. In this next classroom, you'll see here you can actually click on these and get little explanations and tutorials on things like sight words and counting. It's got direct links to your activities for the day. These would be clickable. And then direct links to Google Classroom and Seesaw and Class Dojo, so you can click right into those straight from there. And the objectives for the day. So today you're going to be working on comparing and contrasting two stories and using a digital clock. So all those things that would normally be posted up in your room are here in your virtual classroom. This is a third grade one. You can see she's made a much more panoramic image. She's got her reading area, her small group area. You've got an area for the birthdays. It might be that these books, a lot of the teachers are doing where if you click on the books in their reading area, it takes you to online readings of them, which is a fun little option. You can see this is a Spanish teacher. She's got to where if you click on these, you can hear them being read aloud, so you can see how these letters sound in Spanish for her classroom. You can click here to get your vocabulary for the week. You can check out the colors. All those kind of language posters that you would normally have in your classroom are right here. You'll notice she's got links, so you can go straight to her Google Classroom. You can go straight to her Flipgrid, to her Duolingo. If you want a tutorial on how to take screenshots, you can go there. I also like on her laptop, she's got a contact me. So if you click there, it will automatically take you to her contact area. So kind of building in all those things that students need easy access to, but in a fun way that looks like her classroom. This is an art teacher. You can see if you click here, you'll learn about the art challenge of the week. You can click here to learn about the artist of the week. So, really fun way within that content to have these things built into your room. This teacher is another Spanish teacher. She teaches in high school. She's decided to make this a little bit more formal learning environment. She'll be putting her learning objectives up here, but she does have, some art from Spanish artists. She's got her cats to put that personal touch, but keeping it, a little bit older student look. This teacher went with her dream. If in a magical world she could ride in on a dinosaur as a science teacher, that would be so amazing. Well, this is a virtual world, so think about those things that would just be, a nice, fun little addition. And it can be that, only on certain days you ride in on a dinosaur. You can see here, if we were able to zoom in, we'd be able to see how to get some resources here. We can see what different things we're doing today in class, start going over some tutorials on the content that we're covering, all built in along with her dinosaur. This is a high school AP psychology class, so you can send her an email. You can access Infinite Campus or your Google Classroom. You can see here, she's arranged her things in notebooks. So if you need FRQ help, if you want to access the syllabus, if you need a crash course on how to use any of the different tools, if you're looking for things like the calendar or readings, each of these is just in these notebooks, and you click on them and it takes you right to them. So really easy for students to be able to access what they need. Also, many of you have co-teachers. You can add multiple Bitmojis into a classroom. So you'll see here, they've actually included their co-teachers. So really nice. They've got their beginning of school year letter, or for them, this was an end of school year letter, but you can click there and actually be able to then scroll and read it. You can get to your story times here, all the different links to different external tools you might need, all within the classroom. For this teacher, again, this one was a French teacher, I believe. And so she's got links to French story times here and the parent letter and all those things that you can click and get to. And then the other thing I like here is that she's actually out her window, put a picture of her real school. So you can see, a little touch of reality within her virtual room. This is another great one. Again, putting those personal touches of things that they like, but keeping all the class resources really easy. She even included, look, these are class resources. Click me to see where I go. Keeping those classroom promises front and center. She's got all her codes here on the board. And then I always love, she's even got her hand sanitizer, really keeping it real right now. This one is a great one for showing, your teaching team. So you could even make a virtual thing for your teaching team, which is really neat. And then this one I really like. This teacher was worried that her students needed to know not just her avatar, but what she truly looks like. And so there are options where you could include yourself, just like Miss Park did. So she actually recorded herself and then popped her real life self into her classroom. So you can see she's got a lot of the same great things that the others did, but she's live. And then this is actually a virtual library. So the librarian, because students can't come in person to the library right now, she actually put links to summer reading, things for parents, things for teachers, connections to the collections, that's hard to say, that are available. She put, links to their catalog and research databases, even a link to the public library and to how you can contact her. So really making that work for whatever your content is. And then with this one, they actually included Bitmojis of the students. And so these aren't all her students. She rotates her students through, but notice that you can click on a growth mindset poster to watch a video about growth mindset. I think that's really fun. And, neat that you never know what day you might pop up in the classroom. All right. So, if you end up making a Bitmoji classroom, I would love for you to share that. I think we'd all like to see what that would look like from all of you. So make sure and let me know. But our last topic before we close today is battling burnout. So you and the students are spending a lot more time online than typical. And so it's really important to think about how to battle burnout for both of you. So some of that is physical movement. Think about ways to build physical movement into your class setting, whether that's having students stand up and answer questions or giving them stretch breaks. Ask your students to be on screen. It is really hard to gauge whether students are paying attention and engaged if you can't see them. So just set that expectation from the beginning, that your expectation is that students be on screen. Now, you may have some internet issues here or there, where a student may need to be off screen, but in general, set that expectation that students will be on camera and show them that gallery view, check on them, see what's going on. Give them opportunities for social interaction. That's one of the things that's really lacking right now, is that students are not getting to interact with each other like they previously had. So think about ways to provide some of that social interaction within your learning environment. And then finally, think about some brain breaks. So brain breaks are just an opportunity for kids to move, to give their brain a little bit of a thinking break so that then they can continue being fresh. And these can be super short. They can be 30 seconds to a minute, or you could even do up to 5 minutes, depending upon how much time you have available. But I do want to show you one resource for this that I think is a lot of fun. It's another one that is free for teachers, and it's called GoNoodle. It may look very elementary at first, but I promise you can use this with any age group and it will work. So we're going to hop over to GoNoodle. When you first log in, this is what it looks like. You'll see you can discover, you can look at different categories and channels, you can scroll through kind of the newest, hippest things. So let's say that I want to go to a particular category. They have things even around particular curriculum areas, around SEL and mindfulness, sensory and motor skills. So if you really maybe want to focus on certain things. School life, so if you want to do a particular holiday or an indoor recess and things. I like these movement type ones because if I want to stretch, or if I want to do a little dance, a little brain exercise, all kinds of things. The guided dance ones are super cute. You can see they've got a number of them in Spanish as well, but they have them in tons in English too. You could do this good energy flow, 2 minutes, 10 seconds. The other nice thing is you can always search there or there and really get specific about what you're looking for. I pulled up one under stretch that is called Shake It Off. So I'm going to show you that just so you get an idea, because it's only about a minute long. So let's check it out.
Think about it. Sit or stand up straight. Take a deep breath and follow along. Life can be messy. A morning at home can be rough. Getting to school and making it through lunch can be challenging. but you have to keep going. You have to shake off those yucky feelings. Your body can help. Shake your fingers. Shake, 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 shake. Stop. Now your hands, shake them like you've got them all wet, and you want to shake them dry. Just your hands. Shake, 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 shake. Floppy, up or down, side to side, shake, shake, shake. Stop. Be mindful of your neighbors and get your arms into it. Raise them up. Now shake them off. Upper arms, forearms, and yes, fingers and hands too. Shake, 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 shake. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Feeling like you shook off something? You did. Help yourself move forward. Shake off those rough moments. Shake them off and move on.
So you can see it gets your students moving. It's super fun. And it's super quick. And it's keeping track of how many I'm watching today. So just kind of a neat way to give your students that brain break, and where you don't have to think of what to do. You can play one of these, take a quick moment, and then hop back into your learning. This can also be a great way to start your learning sessions. We talked about those soft starts. Use a Go Noodle as a soft start. I think that would be a great way to do a soft start to your day. And you can look through, and again, you saw there's tons of different options. All right. Well, we are at the end of our time together here. And I do want to remind you that all of our previous recordings, if you missed a session or if you wanted a teammate to watch a particular session, they're all available on our OIE YouTube playlist. If you don't have the link, reach out. I will make sure you get that. But they're all available there. You can watch them at your leisure. And then if you have any questions after viewing this session or any other session, please reach out to me at sbrightwell@seiservices.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. But I really hope you learned something new today and something that you can take back into your own virtual classroom as we launch into an amazing new school year. Thanks.